In this little video, I want to talk about tips or things to think about when you are considering working with siblings. There are a couple things that are important to assess right away to determine whether or not putting them in the same room, in the same session right away is a good idea, or maybe it's more important that they each have their own experience first before putting them together. And the consideration really has to do with how well do you know the children? Like, how well do you know each of them? Do you have a sense of what they're working on? Do you know the level of trauma, if there's a trauma that's being worked through? Do you know what they're going to be working on and how they relate to what they're working on? And the reason why is because if we don't know that and we just put two siblings into a room, what you might end up experiencing is the children playing out their trauma on top of each other or setting each other up to experience the trauma over and over again. And sometimes the containment that's needed for the trauma integration is not as easily it's harder to create when they're both in there and neither one of them have really done enough work on their own. So that's the first thing. Like, are they ready to be together? That's really the question. Like, are they ready to be together? And if you determine that they are ready to be together, then likely you're going to be directive because it is important that there is some containment. So you could think about what it is that they're struggling with, what it is that they're working on, and you can create an activity, give them something that they can work through together as they're working on whatever it is that you're supporting them in the therapeutic process. If, however, you determine it's actually probably best that they both start individually, there's another piece of consideration here, which is that are you going to see both of them? And if so, when do you start with them? So, one thing that is often helpful is that if you're going to do individual therapy with a sibling set, one thing that can be helpful is to start them at the same time. That way, there isn't a sense of ownership about you. No, he's mine, she's mine, they're mine, right? That there's not that sense of ownership, which then can create ruptures and jealousy and that type of thing. So one way to think about it is to start at the same time. They each have their individual time, their individual sessions with you. You can always refer to another play therapist as well, where one works with another play therapist and you work with one. But I'm talking more about if you're going to work with a sibling set. Now, let's assume that you start at the same time. Great, you do the process. You may find at some point that they're ready then to be together. Or you may decide, okay, or the parents or the caregivers or the situation says, you know what, we can't start them at the same time for whatever reason. So if that's the situation, one of the recommendations would be that you start with one. And when that one is further enough along, when they're starting to feel into the empowerment and you're starting to see some shifts and some changes, that at that point would be the time to introduce the possibility of their sibling coming in. And I'm saying possibility because at this point there is a sense of ownership. So it is important if you're at that juncture, that there is a conversation with the child and that you do ask the child how the child would feel about their sibling being a part of having an experience with you. If the child says great, well then great. If the child really says absolutely not, that's an important piece then to pause and consider, okay, maybe there does need to be another referral here because I did start with this one child and we are in this process. Or we wait until full completion and then we start with the next sibling. So hopefully there's something in there that can help you at least conceptualize or think about how you might approach working with siblings. Siblings are super, super fun. We know that sibling sets often need support in a family system, and hopefully this little video gave you some ideas on how maybe to go about it.